I remember how Jessie used to be. She liked ponies, Barbies, and the color pink. And I remember she used to wear braids. It was so funny. She used to match her hairstyle with her Barbies and her My Little Pony. And I've known Jessie since we started school. She was very short, extremely pale, with bright blonde hair. So blonde. I remember people used to ask her parents if she was albino, but she wasn't. Another one of the reasons why everybody used to think she was albino was because Jessie had terrible eyesight. Apparently, she wore glasses ever since she was a baby. She always chose this particular neon pink for her glasses frame. Jessie was a cute kid, and she was very kind. She used to be one of the smartest in the class, unlike me. I was always lazy and never wanted to do anything, and that's why my best friend, Jessie, would always help me. She always let me copy her homework and sat next or in front of me during exams so that I could copy her answers. My parents were so happy I spent time with her. I was a very random kid and always isolated myself from others. I don't know why. I'm just a slow person, I guess. Even though Jessie was a little shy as well, she was good at making friends. And I guess everybody liked her for her personality and overall her cute way of being. We went to elementary school together and have nothing but good memories from it. Eventually, we were sent to middle school together. In middle school, well, everything was so different. Being bubbly, playful, and innocent is no longer considered cool. Lots of the kids we went to elementary school with were also in our school, but they were different. They grew up. Everybody was a little bit more mature. And then there was Jessie. She was just like always, happy, sweet, smart, obsessed with ponies, wearing a pink explosion, and dressing like a little girl. She was both physically and mentally younger than all the other kids, and we know how school can be when you don't adapt. It gets tough. During our first year, Jessie and I were not extremely popular. You know how it is when you're younger and everybody plays and hangs out together, but once you're older, groups start to form. Jessie and I were not part of any group. It was just the two of us. Not even the kids we knew from elementary school wanted to hang out with us anymore. So it was just the two of us. And I was low-key angry at this situation. But at the same time, there was nothing I could do. I didn't have enough personality to go and make friends. I didn't have the strength to go to talk to others. I've always been a follower. And I was sometimes mad at Jessie because even if she was so bizarre, people still liked her more than they liked me. Even if it was just to comment on her or to tell a joke about her. Whereas I was completely invisible. No one even noticed me. And it's messed up to admit because she was always there for me, but I started to resent my best friend. The second year of middle school had come. A new girl joined our class. Her name was Chelsea. She was a nerd and quite goofy looking. She was very shy and people didn't really speak to her until Jessie, being as kind as she always was, decided to invite Chelsea to hang out with us. Now, I know it might sound like I criticize my friends a lot, but I was worse than them. Jessie was sweet and smart, and if you take off those sunglasses, she was very pretty. And Chelsea wasn't that bad. Whenever we were in PE class or any other class that required group activities, I would always been chosen last. People even forgot about my name, despite it being really easy. When the boys ranked the girls from prettiest to ugliest, I would be chosen last. Yeah, okay, I was below Jessie and Chelsea. I disliked being part of the group full of losers, but At least I was part of something. I'm not gonna lie. I blamed Jessie over our unpopularity. But at the same time, I did like her and Chelsea because, well, they were my only friends. The last year of middle school, things changed. There was a girl called Elena who was new in our class, but not new in our school. She was 2 grades before us, but kept failing classes. Elena was very popular around school. She was always with the cool people. But all her friends were already in high school, which meant she was now alone. But that wasn't a problem for her. Everybody wanted to hang out with her. She was rich, popular, and a beautiful girl. All the boys were after her and all the girls feared her but wanted to be her, including me. Something weird about Elena is that she could have chosen to hang out with anybody, but instead of that, she decided to hang out with us. She wasn't the nicest, but she was pretty cool. Elena tried to do a project with us. She tried to make us popular and pretty. She would tell us what to do and what not to do. Chelsea and I were fascinated by this, but Jessie didn't look so happy. The difference between Jessie and the rest of us is that she was actually happy with herself. And despite looking confident, Elena was very insecure and got upset whenever someone wouldn't follow her games. She would always insult Jessie, and after a few minutes or hours, she would apologize. Jessie, being such a sweetheart and hated confrontations, would always forgive Elena just like Jessie and I always did as well. How could we say no? We were fascinated and intimidated by her. Our friendship with Elena was passive-aggressive, but it got worse one day when we went to the mall. It was a Tuesday and our plan was to go shopping. Elena, who had already convinced Chelsea and I to change our looks, was trying to convince Jessie to do the same, especially not to wear her pink-framed glasses anymore and give contacts a try. Once at the mall, Elena paid for Jessie's contacts, and for at least 4 new outfits. Jessie was grateful to Elena, but she didn't look too happy. After being at the mall, Elena, who was the only one old enough to drive, took us back home. The following day at school, we were in shock when we saw Jessie coming to school wearing her old childish pink clothes, her hair braided, and her glasses back on her face. During the break, Elena decided to confront her. Now, I don't exactly remember what was said, but I remember how Elena was screaming and insulting Jessie, calling her retarded, ugly, and childish. Jessie started to cry. She said she was sorry and defended herself by saying she didn't feel comfortable with the other clothes because, well, that wasn't her. Elena got furious when Jessie tried to talk back at her, so she slapped Jessie. And I immediately looked at Chelsea, who looked just as surprised as I did. Jessie ran away from the classroom and tried to avoid us the rest of the day. I know Chelsea and I should have defended Jessie and stopped speaking to Elena, but she had this way of convincing you to do things. And the next day it was Thursday, and as soon as we got to school, Elena told us she had an idea. She said she was sorry for what she had done and wanted to invite us, including Jessie, to a slumber party the next day. We agreed. However, she told us we had to do something to prank Jessie, because we needed to teach her a lesson. She gave us this lecture and ended up convincing us that somehow what Jessie did by not using what she had bought for her was worse than hitting her. Elena sworn that after this joke, we would leave Jessie alone and all the troubles would be over. She told us the plan, and then Chelsea and I convinced Jessie to go to the slumber party. Jessie was very hesitant, but we kept telling her how Elena was deeply sorry, and Jessie ended up accepting the invitation. On Friday, we arrived to Elena's house. There was a big fancy party at her house, so her parents were very busy and not paying much attention to us. We were in her room and everything seemed very good. We were having a blast. I'd almost forgotten about the plan until Elena mentioned we needed to go somewhere. We went to the school just as we had planned. Jessie was hesitant, but Elena convinced her by saying she had left her cell phone at school and needed to pick it up, otherwise she'd be without it the whole weekend. We managed to guide Jessie to the basement and the kitchen where there was a walk-in freezer. We pushed her inside, and we locked the door. And at first, we all laughed and, well, we thought it was funny. The plan was just to leave her there for 30 minutes. We knew she would be fine. Chelsea even changed the temperature so that it wouldn't be so cold, and Elena had invited some of her high school friends to hang out with us. The boys were waiting for us at the school swimming pool, so we all went there to kill the time until the half an hour had passed. We had fun at the swimming pool. Chelsea and I were distracted by the handsome guys, and Elena said that she'd go free Jessie. Chelsea and I let her go on her own since we didn't want to leave the pool. However, Elena came back 15 minutes later without Jessie. She explained that after she freed her, she was so upset for being put there. She argued with Elena and then decided to go home. I worried thinking about Jessie walking the streets on her own, but before I had the chance to go out of the pool, Elena said that Jessie had called her dad to pick her up. I stopped feeling uneasy and kept having fun with everybody. And that night we all went back to Elena's. The day after, Elena confessed that she never opened the door for Jessie. Chelsea and I started freaking out. Elena, however, looked completely normal and unbothered. She kept saying that Jessie would be fine. We jumped into Elena's car and headed to our school one more time, but Elena was not right. Once we got there and opened the door, we found Jessie's corpse. She was frozen. Her pale skin was looking almost purple. Jessie threw up immediately and I started to cry. Elena looked as if nothing was happening. I started to blame Elena, telling her that she had done it on purpose, but she just laughed and said it was an accident and that, regardless, if someone found out, that all of us would be in trouble. Elena suggested to get rid of the body. After recovering, Chelsea said she would help her. I said I wouldn't, claiming I felt too bad and just wanted to go home. But the truth was, I noticed the temperature had been changed. It was not pointing at the same levels Chelsea had set them to. I knew it was no accident, and that it was Elena all along. I was tired of her bullshit and afraid of her hurting me. I don't know where Chelsea and Elena took Jessie's corpse, and I just went home. We were asked by our parents, teachers, friends, and the police about Jessie, but we all said we had no idea. We said that she just left Elena's house that night after an argument over boys, and then we never saw her again. Elena had told us exactly what to say. They never found Jessie. I was full of regrets and fears. I asked for a school change. That was granted, and I never dealt with Elena and Chelsea ever again. I felt like shit for many years, but still tried to move on with my life. I felt so guilty, and the nights were the most difficult thing. Every night exactly at 1:30 in the morning, I would feel something cold on my feet. So cold it woke me up. I never saw anything, but that sensation was very unsettling. A few years later, while already in college, I had a knock on my door. I opened it, but randomly found no one. and as I was about to close it, I found something on the floor. I picked it up when I noticed what it was. There were glasses, but not some ordinary pair. It was the same type of pink frame glasses that Jessie always wore. I immediately dropped them and closed the door. At first, I got spooked, but then thought that it must be some sort of joke. I grabbed my laptop and decided to look for Elena on social media. I found her easily, and I went to her page when I noticed different people on her profile that were commenting on her death. I couldn't believe it. I investigated deeper, and it was a fact. Elena had died 2 years ago on the same night Jessie died. Cause of death? Hypothermia. Chelsea was the next thing that crossed my mind. I decided to look for her just to come across the news that she had died a year ago, exactly on the same day. And the cause of death? Hypothermia. I slowly started to freak out. I tried to investigate more about their deaths, but they had been so rare. The cause of death is known, but not the reasons that guided to it. Apparently, Elena was on holidays in Barbados, and Chelsea was at work when that happened, which makes the whole situation impossible to believe. That night, I went to sleep, and just like always, I woke up at 1:30 in the morning. My feet were cold just like every night. However, it felt as if my feet were being touched by freezing hands. And I looked up, just to see this young, pale girl with blonde hair standing by my bed. It was Jessie. After a couple of minutes of standing there, smiling at me, she disappeared. And that was the only time I saw her. It's been 5 years since that night I saw her. Nothing has happened yet. I live in fear that any day could be my last. I just hope my good friend Jessie has some mercy. And I'm so sorry, Jessie.